Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust, is the best way for you to sell highly appreciated assets, cryptocurrency, save a failed 1031 exchange, all so you can create and preserve more wealth. I'm your host, Brett Swartz, and each episode I am joined by some of the best real estate, financial, wealth, business, and sometimes commercial real estate brokers in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. We're also streaming on Expert CRE Secrets. We like to bring on great guests who can fit both shows. And so you can find more about that at expertcresecrets.com. Hey, our next guest is out of the great state of Texas, and he specializes in the acquisition and disposition of single-tenant and multi-tenant industrial assets in the Southwest market. His daily mission is to support clients by engineering innovative advisory solutions designed to bridge their objective of today with their goals of the future, whether it involves industrial acquisition or disposition, complex sale-leaseback advisory services, or capital markets debt structuring. This next guest finds great passion in puzzling complex obstacles into creative solutions. Please welcome to the show with me, Adam, and I'm going to do my best here, Adam, Abushagur.
There you go.
Oh, my God, I nailed it. And Adam, for our listeners getting to know you for the first time, would you give them a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Yep, absolutely. So, grew up, born and raised in West Texas. So I grew up in El Paso and graduated high school there, and then moved to New Mexico and went to school there. I was actually a civil engineering major for 3 years and decided to turn the lights off one day and turn back on and switch my major to business. So I hated sitting at a computer all day. Funny enough, that's pretty much what I do now. So just to get to interact a lot more with people, help people piece together solutions and whatnot. So it's definitely fulfilling my eyes. And then I moved to Dallas after I graduated, and since then, coming into Dallas, I just joined a sales company selling office supplies, business to business, and that was effectively like my learning curve. I learned how to interact with others, learned that at the end of the day, you're always selling yourself. And from there, a year and a half into that, I transitioned into commercial real estate. Started with Marcus Millichap. Since then, I've been here. And fast forward 5.5 years, here we are. I don't think I can hear you, Brett.
Oh, I'm back. Sorry, I have myself on mute. That's amazing, Adam. And we'll dive into all of those things that have to do with commercial real estate brokerage here in a minute, and especially the industrial marketplace. But before we go there, I'm curious. I want to get to know you a little bit better. Maybe picture the high school or college days. And I believe we've all been given certain gifts, Adam. And these gifts have been given to us to be a blessing and a help to others. Some people call them superpowers. Some people call them strengths. I believe they're God-given gifts. But I'm curious, what are those strengths or gifts that you believe you were given, and how does it help how you help and bless people today?
I would say what my biggest strength is piecing together challenges. So I use this example all the time. Like as a kid, I remember this vividly. I basically begged my dad to come home and buy me a set of Legos, and I take the Legos, dump the whole box, throw away the instructions, and then from there I just try to piece it all together. And I've always had a thrill for problem solving. So and what I found with real estate is the bigger the problem, the bigger the challenge, the bigger the reward, fulfillment for me. So I tend to be problem seeking. So yeah.
I love that. That's a great answer. And piecing together challenges, solving problems, and helping people along the way, and looking for maybe the problems and then solving them. So is that a fair summary, Adam?
Yep, nailed it.
Awesome. So now let's dive into the number one perhaps problem facing commercial real estate brokers as it pertains to industrial property sales, or it can even be owners to it, not necessarily just brokers, but maybe your clients. What's the biggest challenge facing a lot of industrial owners?
I would say right now, I mean, really, last year was COVID, right? So fast forward to this year, there was a lot of uncertainty in the air with what's coming politically, tax reform and whatnot. We had the whole Senate race going on in January, right? So there was a lot of uncertainty there. Now with all of that behind us, the question mark that everyone's thinking is, well, how's tax reform going to affect me here towards the end of the year? And I mean, I would say for owners, there's a couple big items out there that are coming. One is you have the new administration. So love Biden, hate Biden, love Trump, hate Trump. Politics aside, the reality is we're dealing with your tax reform. And what's coming is potentially hike in capital gains tax. And there's talks in the air about 1031 exchanges being limited to a capital gain of call it $500,000. So not that this is the first time the 1031 has been thrown out there and threatened, but that is part of what we're dealing with. There's a lot of uncertainty and fear. So we're helping owners decide, dissect, and really downsize their risk while making sure they're piecing together, call it, good decisions here come towards the end of the year.
Yeah, very well said. We couldn't agree with you more here at Capital Gains Tax Solutions. We're on the front line. We're also in California, right? So we see
Yep.
a lot of pain when it comes to maybe some cap gains tax and
Yep.
other taxes, to say the least. So let's dive right into that. So how do you think perhaps Biden's proposing, by the way, is 20% federal to be doubled to just about 40, about 39.6% federal. And how do you think that might affect your sellers, Adam? And then on top of that, if he takes away the 1031 exchange?
Well, so what I always like to go back to is a couple different things. One is as far as real estate investing goes, always just be focused on the fundamentals. I think there's a lot up in the air that we can all argue about, fight backwards and forwards on what's potentially coming, but the reality is none of us really know. So I would say the two big ones coming are yes, capital gains tax. So right now what's being proposed is, as it stands right now, it's 20% plus, call it the 3.8% or 3% Obamacare. So it comes out to be 23.8%. And then on what Biden is proposing is if the gain is over $1 million, it would then be considered ordinary income. And that would be 39.6% plus the same Obamacare. And plus state income tax. So in a lot of states, I mean, that's more than half of your gain, which would cause a lot of question marks around potentially selling. Now, as it relates to real estate specifically, there's some factors that drive transactions. One is like death, divorce, debt coming due, you name it. So there's a lot of factors out there that the reality is won't go away. So there will still be transactions taking place. Definitely less if that's the case, but I would say there's a lot of factors behind the scenes that are immune to tax reform. They're happening regardless.
Yeah, very well said. I agree with you there. Focus on the fundamentals. I like that. Let's talk about the 1031 exchange, though, in general. What's been the biggest frustration you found for your clients as it pertains to the 1031 exchange, and how do you help people navigate through that?
The biggest challenge is always the timing. So I would say the fear in going through an exchange is always, well, what's out there and what can I exchange into? Because the reality is timing is there's a lot of uncertainty there. That is, I would probably say, the number one reason why someone is stuck is the unknown. So what we found is helpful for clients is really outlining the time frames for them. So the reality is you have far more than just 45 days to find a property and exchange into it. We can extend that deadline, that time frame, sorry, not deadline, for a lot of our clients. So give you an example, we've got a client that we just sold a building for. We've been looking for a replacement property the minute we procured the initial LOI for them. So we procured the LOI on their existing building, took 2-3 weeks to negotiate a contract, plus another 60 days to close, right? We're already talking 75 days roughly, plus another 45 days. So at that point, you're looking at 120 days, 4 months. That's a lot more than just the 45 days. So that process can be very well controlled if you're partnered with the right people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I agree with you on the timing part of it. It's actually why we started our company, back before the crash of 2008, we had a lot of people doing 1031 exchanges. Like you, I was at Marcus Millichap and multifamily here in Sacramento. And, things were going well for a while. And then there was this, things hit the fan and people all of a sudden, like Warren Buffett said, you see who's been skinny dipping, right? When the tide goes out. Yep. And some people had too much debt, not enough diversification, not enough liquidity. And they knew they were overpaying for these very low cap rates in the 04, 05, 06, but they felt like they had no other option except for what we call the shotgun wedding 1031, right? Yep. And I love 1031s when the deals make sense, when the cap rates make sense, when the intrinsic fundamentals of the properties make sense. But at a certain point, when you have such low inventory and values being driven up, there's a time to sell and there's a time to buy. So Adam, I'm curious, do you think it's a seller's market, a buyer's market? What's your take on timing as far as buying something or selling something high and perhaps buying it, higher 180 days later?
I'd say it's very product dependent. So I'll give you an example. Last year, if COVID did anything, it's amplified the need for industrial real estate. So I would say industrial just, at least in our world here in Texas, went untouched. If anything, it amplified the need for it. You look on the other hand on retail, hotels, other product types, office, highly affected. So there's a lot of variables driving when it's good to buy or sell, depending on the product type. Now, I'll speak industrial specifically. I would definitely argue it depends on what position you're in. So it's definitely, you can easily say it's a seller's market, but there's a lot of times I look back at some of the properties we helped clients sell and buy 2 years ago where I thought it was aggressive. And then you fast forward 2 years and you look at today in 2 years, population growth, employment growth, corporate relocations, all those factors keep fueling the growth of the economy in Texas. And I don't see it stopping. So unless something drastic occurs to really put a halt on a lot of the population growth and shifting that we've been experiencing in Texas, not much is going to stop that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's a great point. Yeah, it depends on the product you're in, and hotels and retail definitely got hit harder depending on where it was located, and things are getting a little bit better. Industrial has been one of the strongest, right? So is multifamily, mobile home parks.
Yeah.
Those are my favorite as well. I actually own some small portions of some industrial properties with a group actually out of Texas. So, and I also like to think about the location in which you're going into, right? Places like Austin or Dallas or places like, states like Florida or Georgia or Tennessee that are business friendly, right? That are pro growth. And a lot of businesses, like I think it was Oracle, Tesla, and HP all announced, and this is I think about maybe 180 days ago now, that they're all moving all of their headquarters to Austin, Texas, right? Yep. And you're just seeing just this flood of wealth and of business and of growth happening. So you've got to follow those trends. And that is why, personally, why if they take away the 1031 or limit it to, $500,000, it's more important than ever to have an alternative. So, by the way, you can learn about the Deferred Sales Trust. That's our alternative at capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We actually just saved a failed 1031 exchange, Adam. We had a client who did the same thing you did. He's been in the business for 30 years. He's been planning, pre-planning, trying to find a deal. And he sold 128 units in Georgia. He sold it for $7.6 million, had about $4.5 million of debt. and he's looking at about placing about 3.1 and buying something equal greater value. But his challenge was A, he was running out of his 45 days. B, the values, cap rates are like 4.5%, 5%. A lot of the juice has been squeezed out, right? A lot of the value add had been squeezed out. And he's going, I feel like I'm overpaying. And this is pre-COVID. So then COVID hits and he's like, I definitely don't want to be in it. But beyond that, it wasn't just the financial reasons for selling, Adam, because the other side of it is the personal reasons. You see, he's a baby boomer. He's in his 60s and he's looking to spend more time with the grandkids. You know, he's looking to build it was a Montana like leadership retreat place to help teach and train corporate leaders on how to give back. And so that was his legacy place. So some of this stuff is not just financial freedom, but it's time and energy freedom. Anyway, so we saved his failed 1031 exchange. He's really happy. He got debt free. And now he's been able to diversify into multiple syndications, hard money lending, ground up development, all these different deals, all while not having to do it himself. So I'm curious, Adam, the value of the legacy for your clients, the baby boomers that are getting older, that are looking to maybe kind of de-stress, what would having an alternative to a 1031 exchange mean to them?
A lot. I mean, it's so I take it back. So it's funny. So Brett, you said you started at Marcus Millichap. You probably went through the same training. A lot of the lingo makes sense, but we call them the D's, right? Death, divorce, dissolution of partnership, debt coming due. All those factors. A lot of those factors are as a result of a client getting to a point where they're taking a step back from their hands-on management of real estate. We've got a client out in Kansas. We're selling a building for them. They've got a year left on the lease. They're in their 60s, 70s. They don't want to deal with a renewal or a vacant building. They're selling their building, and ideally they want to exchange to something much more hands-off. Right now, we're scouring the market trying to find them a deal to potentially buy. And what we found is nailing down specifically the parameters of what they're going to be comfortable with is going to be a little bit more difficult. So they're going to have to get a little bit more aggressive, or decide to pay the capital gains, or follow the DST. So I would say those factors really are tied a lot to clients taking a back seat and backing off, a little more hands-off ownership.
Yep, absolutely. And by the way, for our listeners who are listening, the DST can be really kind of two camps. There's a thing called a Delaware statutory trust, which is a form of a 1031 exchange, which is a passive way to take your interest on the property you're selling and 1031 into like a bigger deal, typically 7 to 10 year holds, typically not as great of a value add. What I'm referring to on the other DST, the less known, is called a deferred sales trust, which is, it's not driven by any of the 1031 rules, and it gives you a lot more flexibility. That being said, are you ready for the lightning round?
I'm ready.
All right, Adam, knowing what you know now, if you go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget you'd make sure to tell yourself to do?
I would say listen more.
Listen more. Okay, good. All right. With that, well, let me ask you this question: interest generator, conditional close, or 1031 timeline. If you had to pick one tool and one tool only, which one would it be?
I would say interest generator.
Why?
I would say if you don't have a good reason to meet or interest generator, you're not going to get a conditional closeout or a 10. So it all starts with that.
Absolutely. And that's also insider talk with Marcus Millichap. What's one of the things we learned day one, which is exactly right. Something that's applicable, that's interesting, that's going to capture attention, and it's actually going to give people a reason to actually sit down with you. Because otherwise, why are you calling them? So we're talking to the commercial real estate brokers right now. Like, if you're calling them, make sure you're adding value, and it's something that can be actionable and something that perhaps they are concerned with, and you have like a solution for, right? Very cool. What do you most appreciate about Marcus and Millichap in your 5 years that you've been there?
I would say what M&M is known for is taking a shot at younger guys, no experience and whatnot, and coming in the door. I would say I didn't know what a cap rate was or a dock door was, and fast forward 5 years, it's laughable. So I'm grateful for taking the shot on me. when most others wouldn't.
Absolutely love that. Yep. And likewise, grew up in the real estate business, but I didn't know what a cap rate was, or IRR, or
Yep.
cash on cash return, or underwriting a property, and then get some of the best training and mentors, which set me up for everything I've done now. So Marcus Millichap is a wonderful firm, and a great place to learn commercial real estate brokerage. Next question. What is the number one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
I would say Think and Grow Rich is probably my favorite book of all time. And it's probably a very close tie with Obstacles the Way, Ryan Holiday.
Excellent. Perfect. Next question. What's the one leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
I would say, don't preach to others what you're not willing to do yourself.
Love it. Right. You can't push a rope, right? You got to get out in front and lead.
Yep.
Pull it. I love that. Next question. What are you most curious about right now?
I would say curious, ideally, to see how tax reform shakes out.
Yeah, me too. Right.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
Yep. Last question, then we'll let you go, Adam. After all your years of success, helping a lot of people buy and sell industrial properties, I think growing your team, I think you said over 15 total, that you guys are stretching up across multiple states for industrial property. And you've won all these awards, by the way, at Marcus and Millichap as well. How do you stay centered in your values, and how do you stay encouraged to charge forward to reach for new heights?
That's a great question. So it's funny. I was having dinner with one of my high school friends last night, who's now an attorney, and we were talking about just purpose, right? So a lot of times, fast forward, I think us growing up, you were handed a purpose, right? So you go to elementary school, and then your goal is to get an A, and then graduate to second grade, and then third grade, and then fourth grade, and then go to middle school, and then high school, and then college, get a degree, and then if you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, go to law school. And there's always these stepping stones that are handed to you. And fast forward, you get into a career. Once you get to a point, at the end of the day, there's only so much recognition, so many different steps you can take, and you're left with one thing, and it's your purpose. And most people don't have that. And that's probably one of the things I feel like I'm most blessed for, is I'm always connecting things back to why I do what I do, and it's the problem solving. So I have a thrill, a passion, a connection to piecing together the challenges that clients face. And I would say that is the number one thing we all at times lose sight of. And the minute you lose sight of that, you lose passion, you lose fulfillment, you lose excitement about what you're doing. So best advice I could give is, if you're feeling that way, take a step back a little bit, and then connect to why you're doing what you're doing, what your purpose is, what is it?
Beautiful. Very well said. Lots of wisdom there. Let us know when you write your book. We'll check it out. Adam, for those who want to get in touch with you, would you remind them one last time how they can find you?
So Adam.Abushagur at marcusmillichap.com.
And by the way, if you're wondering how that's spelled, you should be, because that's a really hard one. Abushagur. It'll also be in the show notes, and that's Adam and then dot, the last name, at marcusmillichap.com. And you can also find Adam on LinkedIn. He's active there as well. Adam, hey, I want to thank you for being on the show, sharing a part of your story, giving us some wisdom here, giving us some things to think about. I want to encourage you to keep piecing together challenges, solving problems for others so they can create and preserve more wealth in real estate and in life, baby, right? We need help as well with making sure we're focused on our purpose, right? So thanks for being on the show. And also want to thank our listeners for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions Podcast. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust, is the best way for you to create and preserve more wealth when you're selling highly appreciated cryptocurrency, businesses, commercial real estate, saving a failed 1031 exchange. You can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to learn more about that. That's capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. Hey, we appreciate you listening to this episode. And please, also, by the way, if you're a business professional, you can go to experttaxsecrets.com. experttaxsecrets.com to learn how to use the Deferred Sales Trust to add more value and grow your business. And please rate, review, subscribe. We appreciate